The Finance Minister says ANZ has questions to answer following the departure of its CEO after revelations he passed off wine storage and chauffeur-driven cars as business expenses. A review revealed fudged expenses amounting to tens of thousands of dollars during David Hisco's 9 years at the helm of the country's largest bank. Katie Scotcher reports.
As of last month, David Hisco was taking leave for health reasons. But yesterday it was revealed ANZ's board was also concerned about some of his expenses, which amounted to tens of thousands of dollars. ANZ New Zealand Chairman Sir John Key said Mr Hisco was under the impression that spending was authorised, but the problem was he didn't accurately record the expenses. The Finance Minister Grant Robertson says the CEO's sudden departure doesn't necessarily raise any broader concerns about the conduct of the banking sector. One question for the government, he says, is whether the Reserve Bank has the necessary powers to be able to deal with conduct more generally, which is part of a current review. Mr Robertson says in Mr Hisco's case, there are those more directly affected.
For me, that's really an issue for the ANZ board and for shareholders. I'm sure there will be ANZ shareholders and staff members who are very disappointed in what they've seen here, but I don't think that necessarily means there's a systemic issue.
But Grant Robertson says there are questions the bank still needs to answer.
Particularly around the question of the disclosure of when this occurred and making sure that the ANZ did fulfil their requirements there. So I know that the Reserve Bank is still talking to them about that incident.
The Finance Minister says the public will be the judge of what has happened at the ANZ and doesn't see the need for any direct government response. So what did the public make of David Hisco's spending? I went to an ANZ branch in Auckland to find out.
They obviously get paid too much and they're just assuming they can charge for whatever they like.
I was not surprised. People, if they have free access to money, just use it. And how honourable is anyone when they have access to money?
It's disappointing, of course, but you'd like to think that level of corporate greed hasn't, bled all the way through the system. I tend to think as long as it's been found out, if there's others involved, let's deal with them as well. But I don't think you have to, throw the baby out with the bathwater.
David Hisco, who was paid $3.8 million a year, hasn't commented publicly since his departure. RNZ visited a property connected to Mr Hisco in the affluent Auckland suburb of St Heliers today, but no one answered the door. Sir John Key has also come under fire over the revelations, and today former BNZ chairman Kerry McDonald reignited his call for him to resign as chair. Mr McDonald told Morning Report if the ANZ board was unable to identify problems, that raises serious doubts about its ability to run a bank.
The chairman clearly had no knowledge of what was going on, and it's simply another failure by the ANZ, and some other banks have got their own problems too, to abide by the rules of their banking licences.
The ANZ was censured by the Reserve Bank last month after it was discovered it was failing to properly calculate its risk for 5 years and was ordered to increase the amount of capital it holds. Back at Parliament, National's finance spokesperson Amy Adams says the role of the Reserve Bank should also be closely scrutinised.
There are certainly questions that should be addressed as to how well the Reserve Bank is carrying out its function as a bank regulator. I don't want to prejudge that by getting to a conclusion on it, but I certainly think there are questions that are rightly being asked around the role the RB has as the prudential supervisor.
Last year, the Reserve Bank and Financial Markets Authority held a review into the culture and conduct of local major banks, but didn't find any significant misconduct in the way banks treat their customers. The FMA said in a statement that last year's review identified some gaps in the regulation of conduct at the banks. I tamaki makaurau mo te ho taka utiahi nei, ko Katie Scotcher aho.